rest on us. Come rest on us. As the Spirit was moving over the water, Spirit, come move over us. Come rest on us. Come rest on us and calm down. Spirit, when you move, you make my heart pound. When you fill the room, you're here and I know you are moving. I'm here and I know you can feel me. Calm down. Spirit, when you move, you make my heart pound. When you fill the room, you're here and I know you are moving. I'm here and I know you can feel me. As the Spirit was moving over the water, Spirit, come move over us. Come rest on us. Come rest on us. As the Spirit was moving over the water, Spirit, come move over us. Come rest on us. Come rest on us. And fire and wind, do it again. Open the gates, let heaven on in. Come rest on us. Come rest on us. And fire and wind, do it again. Open the gates, let heaven on in. Come rest on us. Come rest on us and come down. Spirit, when you move, you make my heart pound. When you fill the room, you're here and I know you can feel me. I'm here and I know you will feel me. Come down. Spirit, when you move, you make my heart pound. When you fill the room, you're here and I know you are moving. I'm here and I know you will feel me. Oh, feel me. Holy Spirit, come rest on us. You're all we want. You're all we want. Holy Spirit, come rest on us. You're all we want. You're all we want. Holy Spirit, come rest on us. You're all we want. You're all we want. Come down. Come down. Spirit, when you move, you make my heart pound. When you fill the room, you're here and I know you are moving. I'm here and I know you will feel me. Calm down. Spirit, when you move, you make my heart pound. When you fill the room, you're here and I know you are moving. I'm here and I know you will feel me.
Good morning and welcome to our Sunday service. My name is Angela Aviles and I am the production director here at the River. Thank you for tuning in and thank you to Jason for leading us in that opening song. How fun. This morning we have Jason on music and we have Kevin giving the message. So we have some very multi-talented River pastors here. Well, today is week 3 of Lent, so we're right in the middle of our Lenten season. I think many of us focus on, what we can give up during Lent, a way to identify with the sacrifice of Jesus as we prepare for Easter. But another posture for Lent, one that I find particularly relevant as we mark a whole year of pandemic living, is the posture of lament. We lament our mortality, we lament our fallen world, and just the struggles of daily living. And believe me, there are struggles. At times, we even wonder, is God listening? Does he feel my pain? Well, we've been reflecting during Lent with a series of films from our friends at The Work of the People, and we're going to view one of those films shortly. A central question in this film today is, does your heart break? It's a question we ask of God during times when it feels like He's far away, and it's a question we ask of ourselves as we consider the darkness that surrounds us. It's a question I ask myself, and I hope others are asking as we consider the violence against Asian Americans, my people, right here in the Bay Area. Friends, there is pain and there is darkness, but you know what? The good news is that God is with us. He is with us on this journey, and we are a people of hope. That's the promise I cling to as we look towards Easter, and it is ultimately why we're here to worship today. So reflect now as you watch, and I'll come back afterwards to speak a Lenten liturgy prayer with you.
When the walls fell and the hungry child cried out for help, did you hear the sound? Did your heart break? Does your heart break now? Can I feel it in my soul? Cannot see you, I'm alone. Can the blind have sight, have sight? When you see us all alone, can you hear your people, Lord? Can the blind have sight, have sight? The world is burning as you're standing by. Are you watching as your children die? Did your heart break? Does your heart break now? Can I feel it in my heart break? Does your heart break? Does your heart break when the heart breaks? Does your heart break?
Blow the trumpet in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy hill. Let all who live in the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. It is close at hand.
Even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. Rend your heart, not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love, and he relents from sending calamity.
Lord, we are wayward, mortal, and imperfect, but we reach toward your perfection and long for a measure of your perfect love.
We have not cared for our brothers, our sisters, our planet, or our people. Reconcile us to you, to each other, and to all things.
Deliver us from plague, virus, sickness, and division. Restore us, and by your great mercy, make all things new.
In the season of Lent, we stoop low and offer our humble faith as we even now rise towards spring and the renewal of Eastertide.
We worship you in humble thanks, praise, and anticipation, O Lord our God.
Hello, folks. It's good to be with you today and good to be celebrating the third week of Lent with you as we inch toward Easter. Here's hoping that someday soon we'll be gathering in some way, in some fashion, together in person. But until now, we are streaming along, and it's good to have you with us. During the Lenten season, we are in a teaching series called Wrestling Wild Beasts, taking a look at those areas in our culture and in our lives that can rise up and become beasts, preventing us from being whole spiritual people and being the people of God. And today, we'd like to talk about the wild beast of productivity. And you may be thinking, but productivity is good, isn't it? Well, yes, it is. It's actually what makes the world go round, in a sense, and it's surely what makes our little corner of the world, Silicon Valley, go around. But that's the thing about wild beasts. They don't always start off as wild beasts, but they can rise up and transform, and they can eat us alive. And so some of us, myself included, struggle with the beast of productivity and trying to stay on top of things and stay constantly busy, constantly active, and constantly striving. So let's dig in to the wild beast of productivity, and let's start with a story from the scriptures. This is Luke 10, the story of Mary and Martha. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Now, you may have heard this story before. These are classic characters that have almost become archetypes in the wider culture, not just in Christian culture. We have Mary, the dedicated, restful soul, hanging on every word of Jesus, present in the current moment, and Martha, basically worried about the dishes and the catering. Here's an image I found on the internet this week. Art is always a great tool to help us immerse ourselves in the story. Looks like Jesus might have just gotten his nails done. But that's the story. And the story is that unchecked productivity can blind us to the moments that are right in front of us. Moments God is orchestrating to teach us about who we are and how life works, and to communicate his love for us. And when the beast of productivity rises up, unchecked productivity can become toxic productivity. Here's another image to take a look at. The great Jack Bauer has been crafting these fantastic illustrations as we've moved through this series, and here is the beast of productivity. Notice how this beast completely obscures the vision of the figure, so much so that he's lost sight of the context of his environment. He doesn't even know where he is. He can't see what's in front of him, and he can't see that he's headed for disaster. You might resonate with this image. It might hit close to home for you. You might feel like this figure, anxious about many things, like Martha in the story, not sure where you're headed and not sure how to get out of this endless cycle of productivity and busyness. Well, how did we get here? How do we find ourselves in this position in modern life? Here's a story that will date me quite a bit. One of my first jobs out of college, one of my first real jobs, was working at a big high-tech company here in Silicon Valley. And one day, they ushered us in small groups into a conference room and said, "We want to show you something." And they opened up a computer, and on that computer was the Netscape World Wide Web browser. And they said, "This is the internet." And we said, "Great. Will there be food at this meeting?" And they said, No, you don't understand. This is the internet. This is going to change our lives." And we said, "Great. What's the internet?" And they said, "Well, it's complicated." And we said, "Okay, where is the internet?" And they said, "Well, that's complicated too, but trust us. This is going to make you more productive, and it's going to change your life, and it's awesome." And we said, "Fantastic. Where's the food?" We got the food. They kept talking. They told us about email. They told us about electronic mail, which was this crazy new thing. And once we'd had the free food, I remember going back to my cubicle and emailing for the first time my friend Tim at UC Davis, who was finishing up college. And in 5 minutes later, he emailed me back. And we both said, "Wow, we are going to waste so much time with this technology." And we did. And you know how this story progresses. The internet was fantastic, and then it nearly ate us alive. Email was great, and then it became the bane of our existence. Then we had social media and smartphones, and now we hate those. And it's just a constant innovation of productivity. And things that start out good can become beasts. Somebody sent me this image this week. This is what the Beatles would have looked like if they'd made Abbey Road in 2020 or 2021. Actually, they should have been 6 feet apart, but you get the idea. The truth is, for most of us in Silicon Valley, productivity has become an idol. And it's an idol that, unfortunately, if we're honest, we adore and we worship sometimes. We really don't know how to balance our lives all the time. And I'm talking to myself here, of course. Possibly we're afraid of balancing our lives because we might get left out of some advancement or some achievement, or we might get left out of the race to get stuff and things. And we live here in Northern California in a work culture, and it can become very hard to untangle our identities from the things that we do and the things that we achieve. After all, the patron saints of Silicon Valley are the same people that we worship in the culture at large. Those people who never give up, who constantly innovate, who give their very lives to their achievements. And those people are our heroes in our society. And often we emulate those people without even knowing it. And without even knowing it, we might be headed for a sheer cliff. We might be headed for problems. So productivity and the beast of productivity is everywhere. And here's some proof. This is a box of honeycomb. And you might be saying, "Kevin, you're a grown man. What are you doing with a box of honeycomb?" Well, we have children. And now you're thinking, if you have children, the last thing you should feed them is honeycomb. Well, hey, We're in a global pandemic. Back off. We're all doing what we have to do to get through it, okay? Anyway, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that a grown man was enjoying a box of honeycomb. Well, on the back, you would be surprised to find advice for productivity. I don't know if you can see it, but it says 7 days, 7 ways to make this your biggest week ever. And there's very helpful instruction. Day 1, be kind. Day 2, be confident, be adventurous, be creative, be independent, be a dreamer. And then finally at the bottom, don't know if you can see this, honeycomb can help fuel your dreams. We should just close in prayer right there, right? The crazy thing is that honeycomb is obviously marketed to children, and this is what we're telling our children, that, hey, during your morning cereal, you can have a little self-care and boost your productivity. It's crazy, right? And this is the world that we're living in. Richard Rohr, who's surely one of the stellar pastoral minds in our culture today, describes kind of what we're talking about in this way. He calls it the 3 Ps: power, prestige, and possessions. Meaning the system of society that we built, surely in America, but also for much of the world, is that these are the things that are valued, sought after, esteemed, and worshipped even. And I would add a 4th P to this list, and that's productivity, which is, I think, the gateway to the other 3 Ps. We're constantly told that if you work hard enough and keep striving, the 3 Ps can be yours. Of course, we're learning that that isn't quite true. Obviously, there are entire groups of people who were shut out of this system, and to say nothing of the fact that maybe this is a bad system to base a society on in the end anyway, I think the idea that the 3 Ps are the loftiest goals of humankind should obviously be questioned, and especially questioned by the Christ follower. Most of us probably wouldn't openly admit to desiring these things or even recognize our desire for these things, but on some level, consciously or not, we strive in the general direction of the 3 Ps. Let's contrast those 3 items with a different set of values that we see in the scriptures. This is a quick snippet of 1 Corinthians 13:8. And Lindsay kind of went into this theme last week. But here's verse 8. Love never fails. Where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. And jumping ahead to verse 13 in summary, now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So faith, hope, and love. Chances are, if you've been in and around church, you've heard these 3. These were a very different set of values than the 3 Ps. And love, as the greatest commandment that we find often in Scripture, is the driving force of a world constructed on God's value system. Love is the engine that drives God's economy. Productivity is the engine that drives our economy. So what do? Do we stop working? Do we stop striving? Do we stop producing? Well, no. The thing is, work is actually good and good for us. Work is very good. And we'll look at this more in detail next week, but in the creation account in Genesis, we see that a loving, creative Creator God creates all things, and we are given jobs to do, and the whole blessed project is called good. It's a good story. It's a good origin story for the human race, and work is good. Work is not bad. Productivity is not bad in and of itself, but we can distort it. Years ago, when my children were small, we went through a Thomas the Train phase, and many of you who have children have probably been through the same phase. It can become like a mania, and I think we managed it pretty well. We didn't go too crazy, but there was a time when we loved Thomas the Train in our house. I always liked Percy, the green train, for some reason. Green's my favorite color, so maybe that's it. But as we watched the films and watched the shows, I love the ones that were narrated by Alec Baldwin, but we'd watch these shows, and the central theme of the show was basically this: being a really useful engine. And oftentimes the storyline would be that there would be a brand new shiny train that would come in. It was fast, It was luxurious, and it was very mean to the other trains. I'm faster than you, and you can't do what I remember. And the other trains would be so worried that they weren't going to be useful engines. They'd get stuck in the woods on some tracks remote in the mud, and oh no, they're going to put me in the shed. And the whole theme of Thomas the Train seemed to revolve around being a useful engine. And I remember watching these with my sons and thinking, this is a terrible thing to teach young people, that as long as you're useful, you will have a place in society. But unfortunately, I think that's a message that is played out all around us, and not just for children. It's played out for students, it's played out for college students, it's played out for young adults, and it's played out for adults and older people, and everyone seems to be wrestling with the idea of, am I productive? Am I useful? And I'm no different. The truth is, I've been wrestling with the beast of productivity for the past few years. Backing up, when I left that job where I discovered the internet for the first time, a few years after that, I landed a job in full-time ministry. And after searching, as many of us do in our 20s, for who we are and what we might contribute to the world, I felt like I had finally found it. Serving the local church as a pastor of creative arts, immersed in music, ministry, and life in community. I loved it. I served with some of my closest friends and mentors, began dating Kimmy, we got married, we started a family. And for 17 years and change, it felt as if we were right where we were supposed to be. They weren't always easy years, but they felt right, they felt true, and I felt God's pleasure in my work. Some of you walked those years with us. About 2.5, 3 years ago, it became clear to Kimmy and I that that part of our story was ending. And that was actually exciting, frankly. We were excited to see, well, what does God have for us now? Where are we headed after this? What new doors is he going to open for us and for our family? Well, it didn't feel like that for long. It started to feel very quickly like a struggle. Doors weren't necessarily opening. New experiences weren't showing themselves. And it felt like life, and my contribution to it in particular, was getting smaller and smaller. I didn't feel like a very useful engine. I even began to resent my time in ministry because the beast of productivity was whispering poisoned thoughts to me about who I was and what I was adding to the world. If you'd done something else, you wouldn't be in this position. You'd have more money, more freedom. You could have made something of yourself. Landing here at the river with Pastor Brad and then you and this great staff has been part of this process of rebuilding for me and rediscovering who I am in God's eyes, what my true identity is. And that's what the beast of productivity can steal from us, our true identity and our true selves in God's eyes. I feel in many ways as if God is bringing me back in time, even before I could work, to those childhood years and saying, let me tell you about who you are. Let me tell you about what's possible for you and how I regard you. There's a fantastic verse in the Psalms, one of my favorites, and the paraphrase is basically that before the foundations of the world were laid, before anything took place, the idea of you, the idea of me was on God's heart. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that shocking? And isn't that inspiring? That's our true identity, and that's what overwrought productivity can steal from us. If God loves us that way, if he regards us that way, then there's nothing that any job or lack of a job or salary or the 3 Ps could ever subtract from that. A dear brother here at the river, Derek Fong, who's walked with me for many years, recommended a book last year or so called Henry Nouwen's Life of the Beloved. And when he first recommended it to me, I thought, no, I don't want to hear about how great I am and all that. I want to skip to the end. I want to be a useful engine. But as I got into it and as I began to read, It was one of those transformative experiences. The words sank in and the tears came, and I realized who I was in God. I'm still realizing that, if I'm honest, and I'm still admitting to myself and to God that I'm accepting of those ideas of me, because the burden of productivity and the burden of achievement in our world is so thick, it's really hard to disentangle from that. But I'm working on it, and this book has really helped me. So as we close, I just wanted to read a passage from Nouwen's book. It's really a paraphrase of that same section of the Psalms, but it's just an affirmation that reminds us of who we are. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit about spiritual practices and ways of being where we can rest in God and rest in that true identity that we have in Him. But for now, as we close and then we move into some questions and into some worship, let me read this for you and read this over you and picture God the Father saying this to you. I have called you by name from the very beginning. You are mine, and I am yours. You are my beloved. On you my favor rests. I have molded you in the depths of the earth and knitted you together in your mother's womb. I have carved you in the palms of my hands and hidden you in the shadow of my embrace. I look at you with infinite tenderness and care for you with a care more intimate than that of a mother for her child. I have counted every hair on your head and guided you at every step. Wherever you go, I go with you, and wherever you rest, I keep watch. I will give you food that will satisfy all your hunger and drink that will quench all your thirst. I will not hide my face from you. You know me as your own, as I know you as my own. You belong to me. I am your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your lover, and your spouse. Yes, even your child. Wherever you are, I will be. Nothing will ever separate us. We are one. Thanks be to God.
can be the one that steals my heart. Just a simple thought of who you are. Let your light shine in the darkest parts. Let your love fill the world. You can be the fire down in my soul that I can't contain, I can't control. Would you fill me up to overflow? Let your love fill the world. And I belong to you, forever I belong to you. And I belong to you, forever I belong to you. And I belong to you, forever I belong to you. And I belong to you, forever I belong to you. Let your words be like a burning flame, coming close to touch my heart again. The whole earth trembles at the sound of your name. Let your love fill the world. All I want is more of you. Your breath is life, your word is truth. Your glory here is bursting through. Let your love fill the world. And I belong to you, forever I belong to you. And I belong to you, forever I belong to you. And I belong to you, forever I belong to you. And I belong to you, forever I belong to you. And you have set my heart on fire. My love and my desire are only for you. And as your glory fills this place, love we will embrace. Only for you, for you. And I belong to you, forever I belong to you. We belong to you, forever we belong to you. Yes, we belong to you, forever I belong to you. And we belong to you, forever we belong to you. Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall. But you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won. For you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my comfort. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. The promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. I've seen you move the mountains. And I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way. And I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains. And I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way. And I believe I'll see you do it again. I'll see you do it again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. And I never will forget. Oh, you've never failed me yet.
We want to thank you again for joining us. Thanks for being with us. We send you out as the instruments of God's peace as you go about your activities and your daily routine. May you do that in the knowledge that you are not merely a really useful engine. You are a beloved child of the Creator God. Go forth in that knowledge. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.